What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another tutorial. So today we're going to be doing pass networks, and pass networks I can easily say are the most advanced tutorial that I have done on this channel. Sorry it took a little while to make the video. I have been a little depressed because Barcelona is absolutely terrible and just watching them is not fun. So sometimes it gets a little frustrating. Today what we're going to be going over is we're just going to be doing pass networks in Python. It's actually really cool. They're a really cool concept. Pass networks let us to see player connections as well as the overall positioning, strategy, formation that a team uses during a game. What you're going to need is you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need to have Python installed, as well as you're going to need to have the actual data. I've included data in my code. You're going to need event data from somewhere, whether that be Scout, Opta, StatsBomb, whatever you have. You're going to need to have your X and Y event data, and not just like shot locations. You're going to need to have, pass locations, ending locations, and everything so that you can create this type of connection and overall structure. But anyways, so we're just going to jump into the tutorial. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button. The big thumbs up really helps out the YouTube algorithm. We're all coders. We love algorithms. But anyways, be sure to hit that like button and let's jump into the tutorial. As well, I want to give a huge shout out to my man Sam over on Twitter at Goal Analysis. He's the one that really helped me get started with these. And a lot of the code that I use is stuff that I've learned from him. So be sure to go check him out over on Twitter. Drop him a follow. He's one of the better people in the football analytics community and really helps out a lot of people, is willing to help you out. So be sure to go hit him with a follow. Produces some great content, some great analysis, scouting, all that stuff. So go hit him with a follow, like I said, and let's jump into it. All right, so we're going to start off in Jupyter Notebooks, and this is where I do a lot of my data science, data analysis, data visualization stuff. You can do this in any IDE, such as PyCharm or Spider, Visual Studio. Doesn't really matter as long as you have a way to run Python code. I just find Jupyter Notebooks the easiest. So what we're going to do is we're first just going to start off by importing our modules, our packages, libraries that we're going to be using. So really the only ones that we need are pandas. So we're going to say import pandas as PD. So this allows us to upload the CSV as well as manipulate the data in the DataFrame and everything. The next one we're going to use, this is one that I've talked about. I'd recommend checking out the tutorial where I taught how to create a soccer pitch, but this is called MPL soccer.pitch. Import, and then we're going to import the package called pitch. We'll run those, and those run correctly, so we got everything good. So the next thing we need to do is we just need to read in the CSV. So I provided the CSV I'm using below. As well, you can use any CSV that you want to. If you're just wanting to follow along, I'd recommend just downloading that one so you can kind of see what's going on and everything. So what we need to do is we just need to upload it. We're going to say df, so our data frame equals pd.read_csv, and then this one is called the Valladolid a.csv. So we run that, and so basically here's what our data frame's looking like. As you can see, it has this ID, which is just the database ID. It has an event ID, minute, second, the team, X, Y locations, as well as period, type. So if it's like a pass or anything else, it has the outcome of like true or false. So in this case, it's successful or unsuccessful. Player ID is just jersey number, and then it has end X and end Y. What you're going to need in your data is you're going to need, for all this, you're going to need your X and your Y, and as well your end X, your end Y. So the next thing that we need to do is we're going to find, so we have our data frame and we just want it for Barcelona. This is the Barcelona against Valladolid in La Liga. So what we're going to do is we're just going to filter the data frame. So the way we do this, we just call that same data frame and we set that equal to the data frame. And then in brackets, we're going to call the data frame again. So make sure you call the data frame 3 times essentially. And then we need to create another set of brackets, and on the inside of those brackets we're going to make a string with the column we're wanting to filter for. So in this case we need to filter by the team ID. So we're just going to say team ID, make sure it's spelled correctly. And then on the outside of those brackets we're going to say is equal to, and then in a string, Barcelona. So just make sure it looks like this down here so that it looks correct and everything. This will allow you to filter the data frame so that it's only where the team ID is equal to Barcelona. We'll run that, and then I'll show you the data frame again. So now you can see it's only Barcelona instances of the actual data frame. So it went from 17,000 rows down to 962 rows. So the next thing we need to do is we need to filter the data frame for only our passes. So as you can see, there's things here such as a start, like the game starting, save shots, corners, and everything. We just want passes. So we're first going to add the passer and the recipient as an extra column over here. And then we're just going to filter for the pass and just for all the passes that happen. And then we'll filter as well for successful passes, because that's all we really want to look at, because unsuccessful passes won't have a recipient. So what we're going to do first is we're just basically going to do something where we create a new column. So we'll just say data frame passer, not placer, passer equals, and then we're just going to set it equal to our player ID. So we'll just say data frame player ID. And then we want to create another one called data frame recipient, which we will just set equal to data frame player ID as well. But what we want to do is we want to use a method called the .shift method. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to shift the player ID up a row. So it's going to shift it up. And then if we put in -1, it'll shift it up into the appropriate spot. So essentially, it's just going to say, if we look at player ID, so right here, Martin Braithwaite, number 9, he made the first pass, and then he passed it to 8. So basically, it's just going to take 8 and put it in the recipient right here on the same row. So it makes it a lot easier to actually access that data. So the next thing we need to do, we won't run that yet, but the next thing we need to do is just filter for passes and then for successful passes. So we'll do the same thing where we filtered for Barcelona. We'll just say, but we're going to create a new data frame this time called passes. So we'll just say passes equals data frame, and then we'll do data frame again, and then we'll just say type equals to pass. So just make sure that it's spelled everything correctly. And then we want to create another data frame called successful, and we will set that equal to passes, and then passes again. And then on the inside of this, we want to look at outcome, the outcome column. So we'll say outcome is equal to successful. Hopefully I spell everything correctly. And if you're in Jupyter Notebooks, you're probably going to get this error right here. Don't worry about it. It still worked. I mean, we can look at the successful data frame and everything. So this is just like our, did I spell it wrong? Yep, spelled it wrong. So this is our successful data frame, and as you can see, so we added passer and recipient over here. So it has 9, 8, and it's only successful passes. So now that we have that set up, we're going to do a couple more things before we actually start. So we still need to find the average locations of the players, and as well we need to find how many times those passes happen. So we're going to be merging a couple of different data frames. Okay, so what we're wanting to do is we're just wanting to find the pass network of the before the first substitution occurred. So how we do this, we're just going to create a new data frame called subs. And we're just going to filter it like we've been doing. So df, and then we'll just say type is equal to, and there's one called substitution off. I did not spell that right. Substitution off. Okay. And then we're just going to filter that because we just want the minute column. So we're just going to say subs equals subs minute. And then we want to find the minimum minute because that's going to be the first sub. So we'll just say first sub equals subs.min. We'll do that. And then, so our first substitution, we'll run that. And then we can look at what our actual first substitution is going to be. So we'll just say first sub. Our first substitution was in the 70th minute. So now what we need to do is we just need to set our successful data frame equal to, essentially we're just going to filter it again like we've been doing. So we can filter that and we'll just say successful equals successful when successful, the minute column is less than our first sub. So you could just technically enter in 70, but we're trying to make it so we can repeat the code and everything. So we're just going to say first sub. So I'll run that. And now here's what our successful looks like. So we run that and now we have 505 rows instead of where we had 635. So the next thing we need to do, this is totally optional, but I like to do it. So essentially these, as we can see, these are float values. So if you don't know what a float is, it's basically a data type where it has decimals. We just want it to be an integer where we don't want the 0.0 after it. So we're going to create a couple more variables. This is just totally to get rid of the float value. So we'll just say pass equals just PAS equals, and then we need to use pandas.to_numeric. And then in here, we're just going to call the successful data frame, and then the column with passer. And then we're going to downcast, as an argument, we're going to call downcast equals integer. Then we'll do the same thing for the recipients. I'm just using abbreviations. So we'll say pd.toNumeric again. I mean, you can just totally copy from above and paste it, but I'm just typing it out just to show you. And then we'll downcast that to an integer. And then what we need to do is we just need to say successful in our passer column is equal to pass. And then we'll do that for our recipient as well. We'll just say successful recipient equals REC. So we run those, and I cannot spell successful to save my life. We run those, you get that same error, but don't worry, doesn't really matter. We can look at successful again, and now you can see those are actually float values, those are integers, not float values anymore. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to run a couple of rows just so this shifts up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the average locations and count the passes basically. So we're going to create a new data frame. So we got a couple of data frames going on. We're going to create a new one called average locations. And doing this, we need to set this equal to successful. And then we're going to use a method called group by. So we'll say group by, and then we want to group by in the passer, essentially. So we're going to group all of the passers over here. So all the passer column, we're going to group by those, and then we're going to aggregate. So we're going to say .agg, and then in a dictionary, it's kind of a lot of stuff, so I would just make sure if you're following along or if you're kind of learning what to do, just make sure you have all this. We want to take the mean x, so basically we want to take the mean x of everything, and then we want to create a y, and then for that we want the mean as well as the count. Oops, this needs to be in the brackets. So make sure it looks like this. So essentially what this is doing is it's going to group this data frame all together by, like if you know SQL, it's going to group all the passer numbers that are similar, and then it's going to give you the average values of the x's and the average values of the y's, and it's going to give you how many times a y occurred. So it's going to give you the count. So as well, we're going to name the column, so we'll just say average underscore locations dot columns equals, and then just in a list in string values, we'll pass in X, Y, and count. So we run that, and then we can look at it just so you can kind of see what's going on. And so that is our new data frame. But as you can see, number 1, Mark ter Stegen, 34 passes, successful passes. Serginho Dest, 44. Ronaldo Araujo, 48. Miralem Pjanic, 106. So as you can see, these are all the counts of how many successful passes they had. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to find the number of passes between each player. So we're going to create another data frame called pass underscore between. And we're going to do the group by again. So we're going to say successful dot group by. And then we're going to group it by the passer. So in a list, passer and recipient. And then on the outside of that, we need to put .id .count. So it's counting all of them. And then we want to do something called reset index. So this is a lot of stuff. I recommend looking up what these things are doing, the .count and the .reset index. And if you're unfamiliar with Python, but if you're using the same type of data that I'm using, you can just copy this, make sure that everything's correct, and it should work out properly. So we're going to do that, and then as well, we're going to rename a couple of the columns. We're just going to say pass underscore between dot rename. So we're going to rename the ID column. So in a dictionary, we're going to say ID, and then we're going to put pass count, and then we need to make sure that it's looking at the columns. So we need to say axis equals columns, and then we need to use another one called in place and set that equal to true. So this is a lot of stuff that's kind of going on. Once again, if you're unfamiliar with what's going on, I would recommend looking up and studying really what's going on so that you're just not copying my code, but you can actually replicate it and understand what's going on in case you run into errors or anything. It's a lot easier to solve by yourself than having to try and find somebody to solve it for you, essentially. So now what we're going to do is we are going to merge the average locations with the pass between, and we're going to get a whole new data frame. So we're just going to say pass underscore between equals pass underscore between dot merge. And so now what we're going to do is pass in the average underscore locations data frame, and then we need to use an argument called left on, and it's going to be called passer in quotations, and then right underscore index equals true. So this is essentially just like a join function in SQL, if you're familiar with SQL. So we're just doing a left join on passer, or I guess like a left merge on passer. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to do it again on recipient. So it's going to pass in recipient. But then we want to, it's going to do something where it's going to have same column names. So we want to switch the suffixes. It's kind of a lot going on, but it really kind of all comes together here in the end. So, and then we'll run that. So this is what our pass between is going to look like. It's going to have the passer, the recipient. So Marc-Andre ter Stegen passed it to Serginho Dest 3 times. This was the average XY, etc. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to set a minimum. So for a high passing team like Barcelona, I like to only look at occurrences that happened more than about 3 to 5 times. So we'll just say pass underscore between is equal to pass underscore between, and then we'll just filter it again. And then we'll just say pass count. So this pass count right here. And we'll do, on this one, we'll do greater than 3. So we'll just say greater than 3. So now everything's filtered. We can look at it again. So if we look at it, pass between, look at it, and now it's only occurrences that happened where the pass count was more than 3. So that essentially is all the setup that we're going to need to do. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to create the pitch. So this, I'd recommend watching the tutorial on how to create a soccer pitch once again, but we just do it from MPL Soccer right here. And it's in this one, this exact website. I'm not going to go through the whole process again, but I mean, you can look at all this stuff, but we are going to just take a specific one that I like using, and that is down here in the pass plot lines, this one. So we're just going to copy and paste this right here. I guess this whole thing right here. So copy and paste. I'll include this link if you want to look at it. But we're going to create that. So now once we run that, that is what our pitch looks like. So all of this is on 100 by 100 axis, all of our XY data. So we're actually going to need to do a little bit of manipulation to the data because this is a 120 by 80 axis. So what we need to do is we're first going to plot the arrows. So arrows, we do this. We can do this with MPL Soccer. You can use matplotlib if you want to, but we're just going to say arrows equals pitch dot arrows, and then we need to do this is our X data, so we're going to do 1.2 times our pass underscore between dot X, and then our Y data, we're going to need to multiply it by 0.8, so it's on the 80 scale. And then we're going to say 0.8 times pass underscore between dot Y. And then we also need to add our end values. So we're going to say 1.2 times pass underscore between dot X underscore end. And then 0.8 times pass underscore between dot Y underscore end. It's a little confusing, but I mean, we can plot it right here. Oh, sorry, I forgot. And then we need to set AX equal to AX. So we can plot it right here, and that is what it is going to look like. That is our pass map without the nodes or anything. So, I mean, they have a couple of different things you can do. You can set the width. I like saying the width equal like 3 or 5, something like that. The head width as well equal to about 3. You can change the color. So, I mean, if you want something like, I don't know, you can do white. I like using white. I mean, you don't have to copy exactly what I'm doing. You can switch it up and make your own thing. But we'll set like the Z order equal to 1, and then something like the alpha equal to 0.5. So the transparency equal to about 5. So that's kind of what it looks like. I mean, you can definitely customize these numbers as much as you want, but there's the arrows for us. So now all we need to do is we just need to add the actual nodes. So we can do this with MPL Soccer package again. So we're just going to say pitch.scatter. And then we just need to do this again where we do 1.2, but now this time we're going to be using the average locations. So we'll say 1.2 times the average underscore locations dot X. And then we will use on the inside of that, we will do 0.8 times the average underscore locations dot Y. So this is all the Y values. So that's really all you need, but we'll make it a little bit better. We'll say the size is equal to 300. And then we'll say the color equals, we'll just do like a D3, D3, D3. Oops, not E, D3, 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 which I believe is like a light gray. And then we can set the edge colors equal to something like black. I mean, you can use hex, you can use RGB, you can use letters. There's a lot of customization you can do with this, but we'll set like the line width equal to 2.5, alpha equal to 1, Z order equal to 1, and then our AX we will set as well to AX. So this is how you would do it with MPL Soccer. Obviously, you can plot all this stuff with Matplotlib. You don't need to use MPL Soccer. I just think MPL Soccer makes it a lot easier to plot stuff and makes it a lot more user-friendly. So we'll run that, and I cannot spell to save my life. It's average locations. So that is essentially it. So that's how we do it. Obviously, if you want to, you can grab the numbers from our average locations data frame up here, basically in the passer column. You can grab these numbers and you can just plot those on top if you wish. That's what a lot of people like to do. If you're just wanting to show formation, I mean, you can show just the formation. You can make it vertical as well if you like vertical. You can do a lot of different things. I recommend experimenting a lot with this kind of stuff, as it's going to help you. It's going to help you progress. It's going to help you understand more what's going on than just blindly copying what I'm doing, if that makes sense. I mean, this is a good idea and good starter point, but this is definitely something that you're going to have to experiment with on your own. So that's it for this one, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to hit like on the video, as well as leave a comment for any other tutorials that you would like me to do, as I would love to do any of them. So thanks again, and I hope to see you on the next one.